Welcome to the April 26, 2022 City of Broussard Council meeting. Please silence your cell phones, and if anyone in our audience would like to make a comment on an item listed on the agenda, please fill out a blue card located in the back of the room and turn it into our city clerk. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 5 minutes. Please rise for the pledge. Councilman Higginbotham, would you lead us in a prayer?
Yes. We, the members of the Broussard City Council, beg of thee, Almighty God, to enlighten our minds so that our work will be just and fair in all things. Give us the courage and strength to fulfill our duties according to the laws of the land, and fulfilling also the holy will on earth and in heaven. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Item 2.1, acceptance of the minutes of the April 12th, 2022 meeting. Do we have a motion to accept?
I move. I second.
The minutes were supplied in the council's packet for review. Tina, do we have any public comment?
No public comments.
Council discussion?
Question.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
at large. Motion carries.
Item 3.1, approval of the March 2022 financial report. Do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion.
Second.
Our presenter tonight is our CFO, Karen Fontenot. Welcome, Karen.
Good evening, everyone. Your March financials are in your packet. March will close out the third quarter in our fiscal year. Just to give everyone a running total of where we are. As of now, our sales tax revenues are 17% over budget. We had a drop this month. They were only 12% over budget. They had been trending 20, 25, 30%. Holiday season's over, and that's kind of dropped. It puts us on average 17% overall. If you project it out, that's about $2 million. On the other token, where our departments are trending, so we have police is 4% over budget, fire is 5, streets are 4, water is 10, sewer is 4% over budget. So if you project that out, the cost to the general fund for the departments that are reported in the general fund, fire, police, and streets, is $351,000. Water and sewer is $345,000. So you're about $700,000 over budget right there. With what we've amended in our capital projects, you're looking at about $850,000. So if this trend holds, we may actually finish the fiscal year with a surplus, with a few $100,000 in surplus, if this trend continues. So I was actually quite surprised to see that, but that's a good thing to see. I think we want to finish with a little bit of savings and be able to fund a few extra projects next year. Yeah, any questions?
Tina, is there any public comment?
No public comments.
Any further council discussion?
Question.
District 2, District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
at large. District 1,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 4.1, ordinance number 22-729, amending the Code of Ordinances to amend Chapter 58 and to provide relative camping on public property. Do we have a motion to introduce?
I'll second.
I'm going to defer the presentation to our legal counsel, Gerald Deloney. Gerald worked on this resolution for the council. Welcome, Gerald.
Good evening. This is an ordinance that Councilman Bona had asked that we work on. This simply is to address the question of camping on public property. Without specific permission, there'll be no camping on public property. It applies to anyone and everyone. It's not targeting any specific group of people, but it is just it was an issue that Councilman Monet wanted to bring up. It's a method of providing a tool, an additional tool, to the city officials to protect public property.
Broussard does have two parks that close at night, but they don't close with a mechanical mechanism. So this would, aid our police officers to make sure they can get people out of the park if they have to at the correct time.
Absolutely.
Council discussion?
So what if we have a ballpark, $6 million in park, and they come in the camper and spend the night? Do we have a fee for that to allow them, or?
No, sir, there is no overnight camping at St. Julie Park. We don't have any, hookups or utilities there, in St. Julian Park or at any of the public parks in Broussard.
Gerald, they allowed, I noticed in the park from time to time, bikers will come in, apparently they're on the road, and they'll put a hammock between the trees in the park. And, they'll maybe stay a day or two. Not often, but I've noticed that. Is that inclusive in this?
It
Having
is.
a hammock?
It would be. There should be some permitting process, even if it is a generalized permitting process, even if it is something that can be done unilaterally. I think that the park should adopt some sort of procedure which would make it permissible. Absent that, this would apply to prohibit that sort of action. They would be governed by the same rules that everybody else is governed by.
All of the public parks in Broussard do have a closing time at night that is enforced by the police department. They each close. St. Julian, for instance, is 9 p.m. At certain times of the year, 10 p.m. We will hold it open for tournaments or activities that are going on, but then the park is closed and secured. The two other parks, there just is no mechanical mechanism to close those parks. And I would assume that the chief is supportive of that to making sure, I mean, they're dark, there's no security back there in those parks or hookups for any kind of camping facilities.
This is just to give our police officers, something to stand on, Y'all got any suggestions to add or subtract to it? I'm willing to listen to it, but that's the reason I brought this up. Give our police officers something to, an ordinance to stand behind.
None of the parks in Broussard are staffed overnight, from city staff or, staff from the recreation department. There is no overnight staffing, and we don't provide that service at our public parks.
Just a comment, there is a provision in here that if there is a permit, then camping would be allowed. Someone can apply for a permit. There's no permitting process that's adopted. It's not it would not be a formal process, but you could always adopt a more formal process if necessary. But even today, if there is a group coming through and they say, can we spend the night? We have our own electricity, we're self-contained for sanitation and things of that sort. And the administration says you're granted permission, that's a permit. But I don't think there's an intention to just give these out indiscriminately. But there is a provision for permitting of any camping within the parks.
Does it mention the price or the cost of a permit?
No, there's no cost indicated in here. Should the council want to develop a permitting process with a cost, et cetera, that's something you can do. Should the council desire to just allow whether it's Public Works or anyone else to develop their own procedures for camping permits, you could allow them to do that. This is just a general rule that says there's no camping on public property unless you're permitted to do so specifically.
There have been instances where that particular situation would have made sense. The American Heart Association does 24-hour walks, but pre-COVID, I can remember those, where they earn money, donation money, the Boy Scouts of America have come and wanted to do an overnight camp, for a particular reason. And those kind of things are certainly reasonable, but appreciate the explanation, Jared.
When someone gives you advance notice and you okay it, it's permitted. And it's a reasonable thing.
Tina, do we have public comment?
No public comment.
Question.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
at large,
Nay.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 4.2, ordinance number 22-730, amending the zoning code of ordinances to adopt map F-6 for property located at 901, 905, and 913 Garber Road from light industrial to single-family residential. Do we have a motion to introduce?
I move.
Second.
The map was included with the council's packet as well as the owner's request to have this property moved from light industrial to single-family residential. I believe this lot is being carved up into 3 residential lots along Garber Road. Tina, do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Council discussion?
Question.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
at large,
Yay.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 4.3, ordinance number 22-732, creating the City of Broussard Old Town Special Overlay District of the City of Broussard. Do we have a motion to introduce?
I move. Second.
The ordinance is, the proposed ordinance is in the packet as well as the map that would define where this overlay district would be. Our city engineer, Walter Como, worked on this with 3 of the councilmen that, represent those areas. Walter, I'll turn the presentation over to you.
Okay, this was initiated, at the request of, Councilman Bonan. And we worked with the other councilmen that, in this area, to kind of develop these. And if you read through this, it'll probably look familiar to you because we started with the Main Street Overlay District and then adapted it, for Old Town Special District. And what essentially, in my mind at least, what we're trying to accomplish here, in a lot of the new subdivisions, you may live in a private subdivision that's heavily restricted. You may live in a kind of, we'll call a regular subdivision, which you have restrictive covenants. And the purpose of those covenants is to protect the homeowners that live there. So, you know, you have to, it protects everybody's use of that. In the oldest part of town, the historic part of town, there's no such thing. This is a very old area. Now, we came along and we placed zoning on the entire city, but zoning only goes so far, and it mostly has to do with use. It doesn't really go beyond use. So you can have a commercial use, a residential use, or an industrial use. The overlay district, again, we've done this before on Main Street, is more, in my mind at least, like a restrictive covenant in a subdivision. And so what we're trying to do is, within that area, you have people that have lived there their whole life, and sometimes, you know, maybe 1 or 2 or more generations has lived in the same house. So we're trying to protect the primarily those people so that, for example, there's an empty lot next to a house. If you want to do something commercial there, that's fine. We'll let you do it as long as the zoning is okay. But we're going to make sure you have enough parking. Because also remember this, in this part of town, in this part of Broussard, the streets are narrow. the infrastructure is older, the water, the sewer, and everything else. So, you know, I guess an example, we wouldn't want somebody to go right in the middle of old part of town and put a 10-story apartment building. It's just not compatible. Our infrastructure can't handle it, the roads can't handle it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of generally the idea. And what we did here is I wanted to keep it similar to the Main Street because the mayor is wanting to develop overlay districts for Ambassador Caffrey and Bernard Road to kind of help the development along in those areas. I would like to keep these overlay districts similar from one to the other so that, you know, we're not dealing with something that's totally different as we go from area to area. Similar doesn't mean the same. Each area needs to be handled a little bit differently. And if you look, I don't know how much time you spent on this, but if you go on the first page under applicability and process, the first sentence, and some of this you don't have because I've been making changes with Gerald and the mayor, but I'll kind of read out what it says. The overlay district regulations shall apply to all commercial or multifamily buildings or structures located within the district or proposed within the district, and to single family uses which are not exempted. These regulations do not apply to existing single-family residential uses or to proposed single-family uses that replace an existing structure and do not increase the square footage of the structure under roof. And then I added another section. Sections denoted with an asterisk shall apply only to commercial or multifamily uses. And I'll kind of get into that in a minute. So what we're doing within this Old Town Special Overlay District, if you own a house there and you're doing a residential use, you're good, no problem. If you tear down a house and you put a house back that's the same size, you're not going to impact drainage and that type of thing. You're good. This doesn't apply to you. If you tear down a house and you want to build a multifamily use, then this starts applying. Because, and here's why. Let's say I go buy 2 or 3 lots and I cram up a bunch of an apartment or condo type of thing. Where are these people going to park? Currently, we require 2 spaces per structure or unit. And in a typical Cypress Meadows, Sable Palms, any of these subdivisions, if you drive through there today, you'll see some people, you won't see a lot of it, but you'll see people parked on the street. But in a normal, what I'm gonna call a normal modern subdivision, you have a 2-car garage. Then that garage is set back from the road 20 feet. So you can fit 4 cars. And so there's room so if you invite people over, you have room to park your 2 cars and then an additional 2. If you go on one of these small lots in the older part of town and we don't have, a lot of these houses don't have a garage at all. Some of them have freestanding garages. So if you try and put a multifamily unit there, where are you going to park these people? One of the things we're doing here is we say we need 4 spaces per unit. If you're multifamily well, it really applies more to multifamily. Another example of this would be you buy an old house and you turn it into some kind of shop. And that probably is going to happen. Main Street, if what we do with Main Street really works, you're probably going to see that. That's very common in a lot of cities where you have a downtown revitalization. People will come in and buy a house and turn it into some kind of little boutique or something. Again, they may not be able to provide parking, but if there's room, it starts to trip into these requirements. Another example, you want to do multifamily or commercial, you want to build something or do a multifamily, and you're going to put a bunch of units, where are you going to put the trash cans? We don't want, so it starts handling that to make these new uses somewhat compatible with the people that already live there. That's the intent of this. And I can go through any questions you may have on the text of it, but I thought I'd just kind of give you an idea. And remember, this is for introduction, so you have an opportunity between now and the next meeting to, if you want to pencil in some changes, change the map, whatever, we have time to do that.
If anybody wants to call me next week, want to meet with me, I'll give you an example of why we building this ordinance. I'll take you on a tour of where they had the most houses that had flood damage in 16, and it's all in the 3-block area, more than the whole rest of the city put together. So we have a problem there, and there's no point in pouring salt in an open wound without trying to fix it and just letting it go on and go on and go on. Somehow it has to be regulated, I guess, and that's a word I hated when I first got on this council, but there's no way to go around it, you know? This is to protect the property that's there now. That's more or less what it is.
And also, we have some mechanisms in here for additional drainage requirements, sewer, water, because you are dealing with old infrastructure, so.
Walter, just to recap a little bit what you said, I mean, the primary problems that downtown Broussard faces as infill developments come in are old drainage system that's difficult to make improvements to because it's just, the lots are so tight, the streets are so tight. Smaller, kind of substandard streets to what we would build today, so on-site parking is not available as it is on newer streets.
Correct.
And just an older level of infrastructure. But as we discussed this afternoon, when you and I spent some time on this, an existing house is not affected.
Correct.
You buy a lot, it's empty, you build a house, you're not affected. You tear down an old house, which happens, some of these houses are older and people buy the lots to upgrade. You build on the same footprint, you're not affected, this doesn't apply to you at all. So when you create something bigger on that same size lot, then some of these rules kind of affect how you're doing it.
Bigger, or if you want to go to commercial use because of the parking requirements, you know, that type of thing.
Correct. 90%, 80% of what's in here really kind of is touching on commercial use or multifamily use. There are some things that are in here that affect residential. Nowadays, when people build, the utilities on the ground makes much more sense. So that is a statement that's in here. Having, just like downtown Broussard, having dust-free parking on commercial, but still allowed on residential is in here. Now, you know, this can be changed.
Correct.
In any capacity. It's a beginning. It's a start. It's to try to look at a problem that we have and self-correct it in a reasonable and logical way that makes sense for old downtown Broussard.
Yeah, and let me give you an example that it kind of struck me when we were doing the work in front of St. Cecilia. We had the little bypass on, was it Jefferson Street? And if you navigated that detour, you noticed if you were coming from Morgan and you wanted to make a right onto Jefferson to go around, it was tough to make that curve. And the reason is those are old streets and the turnout radius there is probably 10, maybe 15 feet. Modern street, it's 25 feet. So even in my Jeep, which is, I can go just about anywhere, if somebody was stopped coming from Main Street, I had to really kind of watch making the right turn onto Jefferson. I don't know if any of you kind of encountered that, but that's a result of the older, narrower streets. When all this was built, it was probably still horse and buggy days. So if you take old infrastructure like that, that's old in a lot of different ways, and you start putting a lot of pressure on it, it just doesn't work well. And that's kind of what we're trying to address here. Same thing with drainage, same thing with water, same thing with sewer. This one is the most visible example that I could come up with because it was really tough. And if you're in a full-size truck or something and somebody was stopped there, you had to wait to let them go to make the turn. So.
Walter, we spent years and years getting to retrofit zoning. It's pretty complicated what we did, but we succeeded in doing that. You said you were gonna promote something like this at Bernard Road and Ambassador Caffrey to promote growth, economic development. So this is gonna supersede the existing footprint we have for,
No, what this is,
zoning?
it's called a overlay district. So what it is, it overlays zoning. Zoning's still there, but zoning specifically talks about types of uses. Biggest example, where you live, you wouldn't want somebody to build a machine shop next to you. A 24-hour machine shop. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So what you're trying to do is keep uses that are somewhat compatible. This lays on top of that. And this kind of stuff is really more targeted to, like, I changed it quite a bit from Main Street because we were trying to accomplish something a little different than we were with the Main Street overlay district.
but you said this will be differently applied to the, Bernard Road and Vassar Caffrey.
Well,
I see
Bernard
you
Road-
have prohibited car washes, tire dealerships, other things that are already out there.
But what I'm
Now, I'm not talking about Main Street, I'm talking about retrofitting this and other.
But we're
other
gonna
two.
take this and custom fit it for Bernard
Okay,
and Ambassador. It's gonna be similar. It's gonna look a lot alike, but it's gonna change because there are certain things on Bernard, a tire shop may be okay.
right.
You know, whatever the council decides, but a tire shop, you know, in the middle of Old Broussard kind of doesn't fit. You know, right next door to somebody's little house.
I understand that. I understand the historical value.
So
of that.
this is kind of custom fitted, and I'll tell you right now, on all these overlay districts, whether it's Maine or any one that we adopt in the future, we're gonna tweak it as we go. We're gonna have to. We see that a lot with zoning. Sarah gets at least probably 2 calls a week, asking if a particular use is permitted in the zoning district. And then we have to kind of huddle up and decide, and sometimes we'll come back and change them. So again, the intent is to kind of protect the integrity of the area. And like I told David when we talked about it, we don't want to be too restrictive, because what happens is if we're too restrictive, you kill economic development in the old part of town. Nobody does anything. We're all sitting here looking at one another. Okay. If we don't have any regulation, then you get filled up with God knows what. And you have these incompatible uses. So we're just trying to find a middle ground that's reasonable, where everybody can kind of live together peacefully, you know.
Gotcha.
Kenny, just a comment on Ambassador Caffrey and Bernard Road. Today, the city doesn't have any kind of regulation. You know what kind of money the city invested on Bernard Road. We don't have any kind of regulation that would deter you from having a gravel parking lot at your business or above ground power or things like that. Those are some simple little things that I think we should do to protect the city's investment. Bernard Road will develop. You know, the city built it. It's a hot area. It's going to continue to develop. Very simple things is what I have in mind. They're just not on paper yet. You know, there's certain things that just make sense when the city makes that kind of, and it helps protect the value of the people who are developing there and make the investment. My first look at this, I met with Walter this afternoon. I thought it was too restrictive. I gave him a whole bunch of suggestions where I thought, tone that down. I just want something very simple that makes sense. As we invest in downtown Broussard, it encourages others to, you know, fix up old buildings and that sort of thing. That's great. That's what we want. It's part of the reason we're doing downtown Broussard, to breathe life back into our downtown area. But we want to make sure we get good investments there and things that make sense. We know we have strained infrastructure here. It's part of what we're doing in downtown, changing our water lines, sewer lines. Our drainage system is, we have problems with it because it's so old. So to do things that kind of help us along with that, and we just don't get overrun with problems, it makes sense. Difficult to do. It's difficult to put language that wraps it all up and you think of every situation. And that's why the council's participation is so important, just to.
Well, it's pretty restricted, but I understand the need for downtown. I agree with David 100%, but I don't want to apply those restrictions to Bernard Road and Ambassador Caffrey. I think, as Walter said, each footprint's gonna be different,
Yeah.
Well,
because, you got some restrictions on
yeah,
here.
you know, when they come before you, we'll go through the same process, but it's gonna look the same kind of, but it's gonna be very different on Bernard and Ambassador because the fundamental thing with Main Street and Old Town Broussard is, those are what we call infill. Ray just used that term, infill projects. Infill means filling in an empty lot that's already developed all the way around. And those are kind of the hardest ones. In a wide open area like Bernard or Ambassador, it's pretty clean. It's pretty easy to come up with what we want there. These are, Main Street and Old Town are a little bit harder to wrap your mind around. And like Ray said, to find that right balance where we're not being too crazy. The other part of it is, once all these things are adopted, Sarah is the one who's making sure that, at least it's coming before the planning commission or whoever for whatever review is needed. But remember this, no matter what we do, people always have the right to come before the council and ask for relief. Always. So do I think this will never change? No, I think we're gonna be coming back in and tweaking it as we go. That's my opinion. And we should. We're gonna learn.
Walter,
Yes, sir.
looks like we have an overlay on an overlay. So how does that work?
okay.
What supersedes what?
Main Street is Main Street. So Main Street is Main Street and everything along the front. This encompasses, and I think I put, if you look at the map, look at the bottom of the map, it says no, does not conflict with Main Street Corridor Overlay District. In other words, Main Street is Main Street. That's what applies to Main Street. This encompasses it, but Main Street Overlay District is what governs. And Gerald may want me to put some language to make that crystal clear, and that's fine. But we don't want to tackle people with two sets of rules that may or may not agree.
Tina, do we have public comment?
No public comments.
Further council discussion?
Question.
District 5,
Yes.
at large.
Hey,
Nay. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
motion carries.
Let me remind anybody wanna come look at the mirror, very obvious.
Yeah, and if anybody has comment, this is introduction. If anybody has anything that sparks you, give me a call. Yeah.
Section 5, other business. Item 5.1, condemnation of 307 East Third Street, property of Jerry John Marcone. Do we have a motion to condemn?
I make a motion.
Second.
Mr. Rodney Richard, our building inspector, is here tonight, as well as Mr. Bentario, our code enforcement person. Mr. Richard?
When I was here at that last council meeting, it was asked that I'd go back and re-inspect the interior of it. So I did, and I think, help me out there. Ben, sorry, brain dead. We were totally shocked on how sound the interior was and how good a shape it was, to be honest with you. And, I weigh 230 pounds, and when I walk in any building on blocks, all I have to do is this, and I can tell whether that floor system is solid or not. And so the floor system was very sound. The interior of it was reasonably clean. It wasn't a mess like I've seen some of them. Now, the deal that we made, they turned the water on. He did have a water leak at the water meter that he was supposed to fix, and that what we made agreement with, that we would give him a month to get the exterior of the building cleaned up, including the storage building. Went by this afternoon, and he has cleaned up the exterior very well. The grass is a little long. You're gonna see 5 or 6, 7, 8 bags of trash that needs to be hauled off, that he said he would get a trailer there and haul that off. The trash is borderline gonna need mowing fairly soon. So I guess Ben can stay on top of that. But, I'm gonna recommend to the council that we give him a second chance. And, if the mobile home continues to deteriorate, including the shed, I'll be back doing another inspection. And again, recommend condemnation. But right now, the building is structurally sound. The outside is, it definitely like a, yeah, definitely pressure wash it, definitely clean the roof off, because you'll see the roof system, even though it's not leaking on the inside, there's no evidence of any leaks. If he doesn't clean that roof off, it will leak, and give it another couple of years, it's gonna deteriorate. Pressure wash the outside, which we kind of mentioned when we was walking around out in the yard, to clean it up, make it look presentable, put a little paint on it, dress it up. And I think that would satisfy me as well as maybe the council, to make it look good, dress it up. You got anything to say about it? But we still need to wash it. We still need to get all that. Yeah. Did you fix that water line?
The one in the trailer, yes.
But the one at the water meter,
The water meter was not fixed.
so that,
The guy that I told me he had a heart attack.
I would definitely ask you to get a permit for that, so we can go out and verify that, if the council agrees with me, that we go out and verify that that is fixed properly, and once we turn the pressure on and leave it on, make sure there's no leaks underneath the mobile home. So we only left the water on for a few minutes. Nothing inside leaked. I checked underneath the sink, underneath the vanities. Nothing inside was leaking, while the outside had a real bad leak. Probably due to a freeze break or something at the fitting. But right now, the building is not gonna fall down. You know, like some, I've been in front of y'all and say, look, it needs to go. This might not be the best looking one on the block, but it's stable, in my opinion.
Mr. Richard, you stated giving him, or your recommendation is to give him a second chance. Is that second chance requiring that you go back out in a couple weeks? Do you propose that we postpone this condemnation to another meeting, or do we just wait till another complaint comes in?
I think
What is your
right now, he
recommendation?
has to come in and pull a permit and fix the water system. I think, you know, his month is, what's it been, 2 weeks now, Ben, since we've been out there? So I still kind of got the calendar rolling. To get the trailer house washed up, get the leaves off the top of the trailer, dress it up, and give him 2 more weeks to get the water lines and water on the building permanently. And, do whatever the city requires there, deposit and stuff like that.
The roof has been fixed. The guy got up there and slipped off everything off the roof.
Unless I'm blind, I thought I seen the pine tree growing up there, but I'll check it out again. And he's,
Slipped all of it off the top of the roof.
check the gutters and stuff.
I'm
see.
still in the
Okay.
cleanup of all the gutters as well.
I'll be checking it out. But I would like to postpone this, and, you know, we'll keep the pressure on,
Your recommendation would be to move it 2 weeks or 30 days, Mr.
30
Rooney?
days.
30 days.
Yes, sir. And, yeah, I really think you need to dress it up, clean it up, wash it. That little piece of plywood you put over that rotten wood, that's what I call lipstick on a pig in a lot of cases. That's gonna rot in 2 years. That's, it covered it up and made it look good, but it's, yeah. But he did try to fix some of the rotten fascia board, which I call that lipstick, you know.
And the boarded up window will be replaced and the door was replaced.
He replaced a couple of the windows already,
Yeah.
yes.
On, mobile home, everything's been fixed as far as broken.
Mr. Marcom, if the council so chooses to extend this decision for 30 days, you're agreeable to make the repairs as Mr. Cooney is describing?
If you would give me a specific list of what he wanted done, I will get everything done.
Yes, sir. You could work with Mr. Richard and he can be clear about the things he's expecting. So,
Some of it will require water, so I've got to fix the water lines. I need you guys to allow me to turn the water back on so I can clean up the trailer. I can't clean it out without any water.
I'm sure you can make arrangements, through our utility department. Tina can help you with that to get the water turned on.
We can do a temporary water for you. We can do a temporary water for you.
That's fine.
Miss,
As soon as I get it fixed, I'll let you know.
Miss Tina, I wouldn't turn it on until he gets a permit,
Gotcha.
until I can, that's gonna allow him to fix it. And then after he fixes it, I'll give y'all the report to turn it on at that point.
Gerald, what would be the council's action to extend 30 days?
Someone would just have to make a motion to table this for 30 days and that it'll be reconsidered at your meeting 30 days from now.
I'd like to make a motion to table this for 30 days.
Second.
Question.
At large,
Yay.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
motion carries.
That was our last item for the meeting. Thank you all for coming tonight. Please drive safely. Meeting adjourned.